What's up, guys? Well, looks like Max Holloway just pulled out of UFC 226, and I'm pretty gutted about it. Pretty down because that was the most anticipated fight for me on the entire stacked UFC 226 card, and it just seems like Max Holloway suffered some kind of concussion. It seemed pretty bad, too. You can see with his interviews with Michael Bisping on UFC Tonight, and also his open workout. He looked very slow, low energy, slurred speech. It was pretty obvious something was going on. And good on Michael Bisping pointing it out right away. He didn't really say anything about concussion, but he could tell, him being a fighter and all. Max Holloway looked pretty bad, and they pulled him out because of this. Good thing they pulled him out, but here's the thing. I don't know how this happened, right? Nobody really knows other than his camp. And apparently he was suffering concussion symptoms late last week. He went to the ER, he came back fine, but he obviously was not fine. I hope this wasn't because of some kind of training regimen of him just sparring all the time, sparring really hard all the time. I hope it wasn't because of that. It could be some freak accident that happened in one of his sparring sessions. Maybe he got knocked out. Maybe he got badly rocked and just couldn't recover from it. And he's also losing weight as he does this. He's a pretty big guy. I don't know if he was cutting weight yet. And if he was, this might be the time for him to move up to lightweight, because losing weight, cutting weight, while you're sparring and you're getting concussions now. You supposedly had a hard time making 155 on short notice against Khabib. They said that he could, but he was medically unfit, so I don't really know how good or how bad he was. He still wanted to fight here, so you can't really take Max's word too much in terms of if he can fight or if he can't, because he's always going to say he can. This is the third time in a row he couldn't make it to the fight. With a Frankie Edgar fight, which Brian Ortega replaced against Khabib, and now against Ortega. I hope it's not related to the weight cut, because if it is, this is the time he has to go up to lightweight. It's the best for the division. If he keeps missing the fight, you're just holding the division back as well. And fighters have to also realize, I don't know if this is his case. Again, we don't know exactly what's going on in his sparring and his training camp, but if he was one of those guys who just spars all the time and focuses a lot on sparring really hard too for a fight, fighters have to begin to realize that making it to the fight is way more important than sparring or even getting ready for the fight. If you're not going to show up to the fight, your training camp is worthless. You just wasted all that money, you wasted your time, and you lost a big opportunity. So winning the fight is number one, making to it is number two, and then training for it is number three. And a lot of people are putting training for a fight at number one. And also, I hope there's going to come some strategy from the UFC's part where if they have a title fight, so in this case they have Stipe and DC and Max and Ortega, so a heavyweight title fight and a featherweight title fight. If they have those weight classes in a title fight, they should have another one or even two fights in the same division, just in case. In UFC 226, there's no other featherweight fight on the entire card, so the replacement is going to be really hard to get to, right? If they had someone else on the card from featherweight, they could just pull that guy out and put him in the co-main event against Ortega, maybe for the interim belt or something. That would be a pretty good strategy to do for now on, because there's been too many title fights where people are pulling out, and you need some kind of strategy at this point. UFC 223 with Khabib and Tony Ferguson worked perfectly. I know they went to Max Holloway, but they had other lightweights on the card. They had Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis, and they also had Iaquinta versus Paul Felder, so it worked perfectly. So I don't know what they're going to do now. I don't know if they're going to make an interim belt. I don't know if they're going to keep Ortega on the card, but this was a big blow to UFC 226. I know Stipe and DC is still the main attraction, and it's still an amazing fight, and it can carry the card even without Ortega and Holloway. But for me and many hardcore fans, Holloway versus Ortega was like a dream fight almost. It's this prestigious, or this fight between the prodigies, the future of the sport, the best featherweights in the world right now. Young guys going at it, finishers, and it just got pulled. But still an amazing card. Look at all the fights. Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis still on the card, Stipe and DC still on the card. You got a ton of amazing fights. So there's still a lot to look forward to. So keep an eye out. What's going to happen with Ortega? What's going to happen with the card? Is there going to be interim belt? If there's an interim belt, that's some big news, especially for Ortega. And if Holloway eventually decides to move up to lightweight, Ortega would just get bumped up to the champion. So the interim belt here, if Holloway is considering that, or if he eventually does it, the interim belt might be a good option for Ortega. But the big thing here is who's going to be the replacement. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what's the best option, but I hope they figure something out.